Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Prize Fighters, Circus Freaks, and Gangsters. I'm Greta.
And I'm Jamie.
And we are here to look at the 19th century and compare and contrast it with, well, nowish.
Yay!
For better or for worse, for sure.
Well, it's definitely easy to do when you hear about old people asking you to fax through something. You're like, oh, sweet, we can use 19th century technology still. It's fun.
That's true. The fax is 19th century. But specifically today, we are here to look at Warrior Season 2, Episode 8, All Enemies, Foreign and Domestic. I mean, you already know there's going to be a lot of fighting. Like, there is angry and there is fighting with a title like that.
Well, it is also part of the oath of the oath of the U.S. oath of office. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I immediately was like, "Oh, this is going to be a Super America episode." That's where my head went with it. I didn't think it was going to be violent. Okay. I thought it was going to be America. Fuck yeah!
However, they yank all of our chains with the opening sequence, and it just seems like we're doing a buddy comedy again.
Oh, we get the best Quentin Tarantino scene. I mean, this was like the Royale with cheese scene.
Oh, yeah.
Like all over again. And actually, that happened specifically because when they were shooting this episode, they ran out of time, and they were supposed to have a big-ass fight scene where they wiped these guys out. And instead of doing that, what they did was show the aftermath and pan back on it, Quentin Tarantino style, because they just didn't have the time to put a fight scene in.
Yeah, but the fact that they have them eating again, Hong is eating again, this is going to become his thing as much as, or possibly more than the necklace. But you get to see that these dudes they're all cool. They're all okay with each other. They're going to be together forever because they are totally giving Hong shit. Yanking his chain about his chain.
About his rope. Yeah. We get the story of how his quote-unquote rope comes into use. It's amazing. He says that there was a violinist child prodigy who fought for the tongs and smashed his hands up so much he couldn't play the violin anymore. So then he would just strangle people with the violin cord, and that is how, or the violin strings, and that's how he got his gimmick. And so Hong decided he needed a trademark and a gimmick, so he came up with his chain, which his friends call a rope.
Just to, mess with him. But so
that's why he fights with a rope. It's so much fun the way they say it. It's perfect. It's exactly how I break my friend's balls.
So we have that wild kind of like, whoa, shit, cold open. It's generally fun. It's all for a good laugh. And then we come back from the credits and...
Well, plus these three friends are sitting there eating, and it's kind of like almost like a Friends scene. And it looks like they're in a restaurant, and there's people kind of milling around in the background, and they're just eating and bullshitting and talking about this story as the camera pans back Quentin Tarantino style, and you see that they're just surrounded by all these dead Hop Wei
bodies.
Yeah, and Young Jun's like, yo, if anybody's still breathing, let them know they work for us. And
I don't think anybody's still breathing.
Exactly.
He's like, I'm good with that.
Yeah, come on, Rope Man. The Rope Man.
And it is really funny. Sort of, you were thinking from last episode, it's like, okay, the three toughest guys are going to have to fight. And the Hop Wei said, nah. No. You guys are too much chaos. We need to put an end to this.
Yeah, the Fung Hai got wiped out.
Yeah.
And then we go into an even more grisly scene. So from a couple of psychopaths eating inside of a room full of murderers. Yeah. There's somebody sharpening the ultimate doctor's tool of the 19th century.
My hand went right up in front of my face, and I started watching this through my fingers. Like, I'm a biology teacher. I do dissections. I'm a cook. I do butchery. I go to boucherie where they, like, take apart animals, and I'm cool with that. But the implied suffering involved here, I'm just like, oh, God. Blah.
There was no implication of suffering here. Everything was filthy. The walls are mud spattered, and then everybody has a bucket next to them, and most of them are puking. Plus, there's all these wounds that are untreated. There's maggots all over. Like, This is the nastiest, like, surgical scene I've ever seen.
Blood on the tent ceiling. You can see people being held down everywhere. I just like, I'm like, I really barely watched this scene. I mostly listened to it, kind of. This is not... Blah.
Yeah, and I thought it was amazing that the first thing that they did was they showed the guy with a file sharpening the saw, because a saw for a surgeon in the Civil War, that was specifically their ultimate tool, because they were just hacking off limbs because they were going to get septic anyway. And so they didn't have time or a way to clean it, or a way to really like make it manageable to have tourniquets. And you saw that in this. There were people with like open stumps that had no tourniquets on them, and that was because these doctors all trained their asses off for their grip. So they would just grip up your leg or your arm and cut off the circulation with the force of their grip. And then they had to be crazy strong, because sawing through a person's leg is really difficult. So they had to be fast as shit and strong as hell. And they were all drunk as shit and crazy as hell, because they were just living in this misery all the time.
Yeah, when you read the accounts of this, they talk about these people taking off limbs in like seconds. And, you know, God help you if you're the surgical assistant. Count your fingers after you're all done. And then the way that they would staunch the bleeding is it was cauterization. They weren't even really sewing these guys up. They might sew up the skin flap later, but to stop the bleeding, they would have like, you know, they show like the branding in and the burning out from the Hop Wei. They were using that to stop the bleeding, and they would just like...
Just a flat iron on your stump. And this is with no anesthetic of any kind. So you have already been shot, you're infected now, or you're about to be infected or whatever. Plus you had a mini ball like splinter and shatter this limb into
and you probably
pieces.
Had dysentery to go along with it.
Yeah. Oh, they certainly had dysentery. Dysentery, possibly cholera. So they're shitting themselves, they're puking themselves. And then they have this shattered limb that they're having sawn off without any anesthetic. And that's where we see Buckley is screaming that they should not take his leg. And the maggots that were shown on his leg were real maggots. And he was very proud of this. He was so excited that he got to do a scene with real maggots.
I mean, for me, the maggots was like the most watchable part as far as I was concerned. I'm like, oh, maggots. Those are good little guys.
Well, here's my question for you, science teacher. Because I used to read a lot of survival books when I was a kid, because there was kind of this... There were a lot of books you could buy in the backs of comic books, and one of them was a survival book. There was another one about deadly fighting arts and stuff. But they said that if you had an open wound that you could not sew shut, and it started to fester, you should sprinkle sugar on it, let flies live on it, and lay eggs, and the maggots will eat away the septic flesh.
Necrotic flesh.
Yeah, and when it starts to bleed, you just wipe the maggots out, and you're good. You can keep moving. So he's got maggots. Could they just have done that, or?
Okay, so maggots are now used in surgical settings, but those maggots are raised in sterile situations, and they really do that. They go in and they eat away the dead flesh.
They're bougie maggots.
The sprinkle sugar, like I guess if you were gonna die anyway, it's better than doing nothing. But all of these steps, remember, these are not sterile flies, so they might be adding like other terrible disease thingies from their nasty little fly feet into your wound.
I'm just picturing these little aristocratic British flies with little powdered wigs and holding up their pinkies and yes!
So I guess like if you're gonna die anyway, if you can stand it, try something. But the medical use of maggots, I think, is super duper cool. Anyway, another moment for thank God there's no smell-o-vision. I don't care what you say. Never gonna do it.
Ooh, this would have been a gnarly scene, because you would have that sickly sweet smell of rotting flesh. You'd have the puke and the shit and the blood and the rotting blood and lots of rotting blood, plus the rats and the dead rats.
But on a lighter note, I was glad to see that they were following the federal law that it's required, if you're going to show something about the Civil War, it has to be in that sepia tone. Like, did you realize that's a regulation now?
noticed that it was in sepia, but I hadn't. I did not even. It didn't even sink in. I like the direction in this, though. It was fun.
Oh, yeah. No, it's sort of like anytime anything Civil War comes up, they put that color wash over it, just so you know where you are. The entire Civil War took place in sepia tone.
It took place in sepia tone, and all of the nurses were just cute as shit. There wasn't one marginally unattractive nurse.
Had all their teeth.
They were hot as hell from start to finish.
Yes, no skin diseases from touching all of these No.
Nope, they got all their teeth. Everything is perfect with these women.
Ugh.
It's amazing.
So anyway.
To be a nurse in the Civil War, what lucky ladies.
Yeah, so they were talking about how Buckley was changed after his experience in the war. I'm like, yeah, that would change me.
Yeah. God, what a stupid-ass war. Every inch of that war was dumb. The reasoning was dumb. The way that was fought was dumb. The medicine was dumb. Everything was dumb. It was dumb and bad. So Buckley
wakes up.
Yeah, he's dreaming about his amputation. That's a fun dream, huh?
Whoa, I would know. Yeah, talk about night terrors right there.
He deserves them. Fuck him. But he's awakened by the police. You know, he's driven from his reverie, tragically, by the police. Unfortunately, that torture couldn't go on longer for him. But he finds out that the mayor has been murdered. And so he gets good news on top of being rescued from his dream.
And, yeah, he's all got the adrenaline going through there. And so he goes into that cool black and white marble foyer. He sees the scene with the blood and everything. And I could just see...
And he knows the butler did it.
Right? I could just see the wheels turning in Buckley's head. He's like, oh, this is an opportunity like none other. I am so jazzed for this. Like, you can see him just go into overdrive. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do?
Yeah, and then the chief goes, oh, yeah, and we didn't tell anybody about this because we wanted you to get here and concoct a story first. So where are we going with this? And then he's extra excited.
Oh, yeah, because the police chief is very much like, poor Mrs. Blake, this must have been, like, unbelievably tragic for you. And so he wants to go in with kid gloves, but Buckley puts on those brass knuckles and goes in swinging. He's like, well, somebody's got to get arrested because the mayor died. And Penny is very shocky. Like, you can tell she's trying to figure out the best thing to do, but she can't quite get there. Whereas Sophie just wades in with absolutely no consideration for the consequences because she's never had really bad consequences, or at least not that they've soaked in.
Yeah. Well, she's also 18 or 19, and I think that any person who's 18 or 19 does the dumbest fucking thing they could think of at every instant of every day. It's like you're biologically forced into making terrible decisions at that age.
You're assuming there's any thinking going on. That's the other thing.
Well, there's so many hormones because she's so excited about Leary that her brain is just focused on being the hero so that she can get some attention.
Yeah, so Penny's trying to be very vague about what happened. Well, I was being strangled, and the next thing I know, I'm not, and I'm worried about Sophie, and then I figure out he's dead, and I don't know what happened. Like, she's really trying to be super vague, and then Sophie's just like, oh yeah, Butler did it. Jacob, Chinese guy.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, well, I don't know what happened, and then Buckley's like, well, we could pin it on you, and the police chief had just said she couldn't have done it because he was hit on the back of the head while he was strangling her. So, like, the whole thing's stupid, but it scares Sophie enough, like it would scare any person who's not dealt with the police in a situation like this. Like, they're in shock. They're going to say stupid shit, and she did say stupid shit.
Yeah, and you can see Flanagan would let Penny get away with being vague, and it's like, okay, let's look around, let's figure out what happened. Like, he would be willing to construct something that would, like, spare the women, but Buckley, He is like, I am going to get everybody spun up so I can play them all. Because it's the mayor of San Francisco has been killed in his own home, and someone is going to be arrested. And, Sophie She can't handle that kind of pressure.
And it's interesting because it goes right from there into Assam coaching Young Jun into not making rash decisions and having patience and not being an ass. So Sophie needs that guiding hand, but instead she's got Leary going, yeah, somebody had to swing for it. But But Assam is actually being kind of a good mentor to young June.
Right. Yeah, for one of the themes I was watching in this episode is like, it feels like young June wants to live up to his new responsibilities. He's like, if I'm going to do this right, I have to change. And it's like, I felt like he was really trying to step up, and it was kind of cool to watch.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where when you have an emotionally distant dad, I didn't have this problem, but I've seen it before, where you have an emotionally distant dad who's constantly down on you, and then they're trying to impress their dad. They often do really stupid shit trying to impress their dad because they don't really know what impresses their dad because their dad's such an ass to them.
Right.
Yeah, so...
But I can just feel young June just working so hard to do something, to do this different. Because when he walks in to talk to Father June, you can just sort of see the merry-go-round of their relationship. You know, you're never good enough, you're too slow, you can just see the merry-go-round trying to get started up. But young June kind of manages to short-circuit it. And I think Father June also doesn't necessarily totally want to go there because he does drink the liquor that young June brings him.
I was wondering while I was watching this if there is... Because there seems to have been some change in the manner in which people address each other in terms of, like, familial relationships or... and I know in Asian cultures there's a lot more hierarchy that goes into it based on age. And I wonder how... I'm not expecting the dialogue here to be, like, historically accurate.
Sure.
But I wonder exactly what the interactions between a parent and a child... I imagine it would have been a lot of a parent talking to a child, no matter what their age, and not really...
Well, be seen and not heard kind of stuff.
Yeah. At what point do they become a human that they can talk back and be a peer, or did that happen? I wonder.
I think it's definitely one of those things that depends. When young June, sits his butt down in the chair, I think Father June is sitting with that idea and wondering if that's what he wants to do. I mean, I absolutely know that there are parent-child relationships that never get there.
Yeah, it's interesting because there weren't really the concept of a child didn't really exist. Not like a child, your progeny, but a child in terms of like children the way we think of them today. It didn't exist. So
yes and no. I actually brought that out in a history class once, and I got thrown to the floor and stomped on.
Really?
Yeah, and so it's a class thing. It's a time and place thing. I learned in the Roman Empire, like there actually were words for like teenager and child. So if you're a lower class or working class or whatever, no, there wasn't much childhood. But if you were in the upper class, there was this period of time when you were supposed to run around and do and learn things and then run around and do stupid shit. Like that was something that existed. And so it was always a class thing. And then if you look at some of the more sort of village-focused societies, like American Indians, the indigenous people there was an idea of adolescence. There was a period of time where you were supposed to be a stupid idiot asshole who made terrible decisions. And then you sort of went through some sort of experience that's like, okay, now you have to start thinking like an adult. Like there were transformative experiences. It's always been clearer for women because our bodies go, you're not a kid anymore. Blammo. Now you can have babies. And so there's a lot of ceremonial stuff in every culture about that for women. And so a lot of times, like once you're married or once you have your first kid, you often are no longer treated as a child even by your mother, by your female relatives.
That's so... it's... Human development is so odd, and the way people treat people of different ages, especially since now we know your brain isn't formed until you're 24, but you can have children at the age of 12. Like, that is such a terrible biological adaptation. Like, your brain doesn't fucking work, but you're still having kids for a dozen years before your brain even, like, kicks in all the way. Like, that's rough. That's rough.
Well, and that... it is pretty fucked up. I agree.
And we send kids to war and their brains don't work.
Right.
It's like, all right, you're a child and your brain's malfunctioning. Go kill some people. Let's see how that works out.
I mean, it works. That sort of situation works better when you live in a more communal society. And so girls aren't having their own babies alone. Like, they have their aunties and their mom and their big sisters. And, you know, they sort of like... Even so, part of me is...
Yeah, back when people used to help each other.
Is the first kid like the first pancake? It goes so well. But
well, I think that rule still holds now, doesn't it?
Hey, I'm the first kid.
Well, I mean, a lot of parents you kind of treat it that way. They really work real hard on the first one, and it comes out kind of fucked up, and then they don't try so hard on the second and third, and it goes a little better sometimes.
Yeah.
But they go real hard on the first one, and a lot of times they fuck it up.
New kid, new mistakes. But yeah, the nuclear family and then having children really young, that is terribly counterproductive.
Oh, well, that's something we can fix on another episode, I guess.
Anyway, so we get to do Hill Street Blues, San Francisco 1880s style, as Chief Flanagan is like talking to the cops in the room, you know, let's get out there, boys.
What is Hill Street Blues? I've heard of Hill Street Blues, but I don't know what it is.
It's a cop show. Yeah, it's a cop show from the 80s. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember the logo, but that's about as much of it as I remember.
Yeah, and I bet you would recognize the music too, but the whole, and like I may have watched 5 episodes ever, but you just see the scene of, you know, the lieutenant talking to all of the cops in the room and sort of giving them the the update for the day, and like, this is what we're looking for. Yeah. So it was just that particular scene. I was like, yep. There it is. It's like, let's go out and get them, boys, yep. You know. And these police are feeling their oats because they just fucked up the Fung Hai.
Yeah, well, and also, I think, didn't they say that they've been hiring more cops? I thought at some point they said that. Yeah, so they've got more cops. There are more of them, which means they're going to get more hyped because now they're feeling their numbers and stuff like that. So They're all standing around acting so tough, and Lee's just kind of hanging back like, well, and he looks like a fucking wreck too. And he gets O'Hara so good because when O'Hara's like, oh, you look like a fucking mess. And he's like, I don't need to be ready. You're just going to pin this on the first Chinese dude you see anyway. Do whatever you're going to do. I will just be wandering along behind you.
And you know why I think that? Because I know you planted evidence. Duh, duh, duh.
And not just that, but he made Lee complicit in his lie by doing that. And that, I think, is what pissed Lee off the most. Because he's like, he's trying to be the most honorable person that has ever lived, and this man has now implicated him in, like, pinning a crime on somebody else.
Not one. Yeah. Not two. Yeah. The list just keeps going, and, you know, he has lost his cool. This is the most un-Sherlock Holmes things where Lee just flips a switch and just goes after O'Hara in the bullpen, like full on throw down, punch him up, break the furniture, fight.
Yeah, and O'Hara has a fun line. It's like, you've been doing nothing but making terrible decisions, but throwing a punch at me was the dumbest you've had yet, or something like that. And then Lee just tosses him. You think O'Hara's going to get the best of him because Lee looks like he is about to fall down dead of a heroin overdose, but nah, he gets him.
So then we move from one set of fighting Irish to another set of fighting Irish, and there's Leary. And He's in that position of being a leader who can't get his people what he knows they need and want.
Yeah, so he's going around the Irish who are sitting around waiting for a job, and he sees a guy and he tries to hand him some money, and the guy's like, I don't want a handout, I want the goddamn job you promised me. And they're pissed that they had to pay dues when they did have work, and now they don't have work. And kind of like you said, it's almost like he's a general going around to troops that he can't fully supply, and he's just like, look, I'm doing fucking what I can. They're like, well, you need to do more, and he's just like, I literally have done everything that a man can do. Like, we just have to wait.
We kind of have to wait. Like, we can't have everything happen now. And yeah, these guys are like, now, and his brain is, you can just sort of see it sort of fritzing, and then Sophie looking fucked up comes walking around the corner. And he's like, what?
Yeah, apparently Mayor got her good. Yeah, so then he immediately goes into murder mode. He's like, who am I going to kill right now? That's all that's on his mind is, what is the name of the person who is about to die?
Yeah. And I will say, at least this time, Sophie is almost dressed down enough to be in this neighborhood. Like, she actually kind of looks like she belongs there with those clothes that she's wearing.
But the bitch is bonnetless! Bonnetless, I tell you!
But, I mean, she looks like she could be bonnetless in those clothes.
But I can tell you the reason for the change in the dress. It is because the original costume designer, Diana Cilliers, quit over the proposed changes to the clothes. She really, really loves historically accurate period clothing and was insistent upon it. And so... and like she did the costuming for The Salvation, which I love. It's a Mad Mikkelsen movie about a Swedish farmer who kicks everybody's ass in the Old West. She did Vagrant Queen, which is this phenomenal sci-fi show nobody saw. But yeah, and another woman named Moira Ann Meyer took on her costuming, and that's why Atoy now has a new costume every time she shows up. But
okay, and so it's like she was the original costume designer. She wasn't willing to go in with the graphic novel, heightened reality, a little bit crazy.
I'm sure that she was probably melting down over the bonnet situation the same way you were, and it was just Toy's clothing was the straw that broke the camel's back. She wasn't sleeping, she wasn't eating, she was probably a wreck.
Sisterhood. Yeah. However, I'm like, hey, I'm up for the crazy shoes. I like a crazy shoe. So,
I'm going to reach out to her on Instagram, see if we can get her on, or we'll get down to the bottom of this bonnet nonsense.
This bonnet situation.
My
but
God.
Anyway, yeah. So, yeah, you're right. Larry's like, who am I going to kill? But meanwhile, Buckley is lit up like a goddamn light bulb plugged into just slightly too much power. Like, he is so ready when they're like, all right, Mr. Mayor. And this is where we get the title.
Yeah, well, and Leary finding out that he was like, oh, fuck me, now I got to deal with Buckley direct. As that was dawning on him, he did not look like a happy man. Mm-mm. No. And now Buckley's out there with the cops, getting the Irish all riled up as the cops come strolling in to
'cause he's like,
go smash up Chinatown.
Yeah, I'm the mayor. I've got the power. I'm going to... And this is why I think of Buckley as lawful evil. He uses the rules to do bad.
And how about this? So they are going around looking for Jacob, the murderer, and they've got a drawing. Mm-hmm. It's a wanted poster with a drawing of a Chinese man. He might as well be John Chinaman. It might as well, instead of Jacob, just John Chinaman. It is a Chinese man is what we're looking for. Bring him to us. And so they just go in there and start beating up every fucking Chinese man they see.
With a beanie on, yeah. Got a beanie on?
Yeah, it's appalling.
Yeah. But, yeah, and Leary, you're right. Yeah, Leary can kind of see, like, he can feel everything kind of pulsating. There's blood in the air. He's like, and he goes to Buckley. He's like, all right, my guys are about to explode. Like, this is going to be real fucking bad. And Buckley actually says, no, I don't want your amateur cops along with my recently trained cops, because...
Yeah, he said, why don't you deputize the Irish? Because they're going to be vigilante justice anyway if you don't deputize us. So deputize some people, give them some money, let's see what we can work out. And he's just like, nah, we're not going to do that.
And I actually think, like, there's no good outcome here, but I think that could have made it worse faster? I don't know.
I mean, based on what we know about the Sydney Ducks and what we know about in real life and what we know about Leary on this show, they would have burned the entire goddamn thing down immediately. I mean, Barbary Coast and Chinatown would have ceased to be within 6 hours. It would have been burnt to a crisp.
I mean, if anything, Buckley knows he didn't want to give the vigilantes access to shotguns.
Yeah, because again, they would have had their weapons in an armory by and large.
Yeah, so Leary tries to get him to do it, and Buckley says, you couldn't intimidate me when I was deputy mayor. Now I'm mayor, so get bent, buddy.
And then O'Hara breaks into Toy's place, which I did not see coming, honestly, because I just feel like when you're when you make an agreement with somebody, you should probably stick to it. But he goes and he busts it.
Though
he doesn't really bust up her place, so it's very civilized. He just walked in there and he was like, "We're searching this place. Everybody, chill out."
Yeah, I think him saying, I am going to deal with Atoy instead of just sending in any random person, I think that was like as good as he could do. So did you notice what Atoy had on her dress?
I did not. What did she have on her dress?
It was a phoenix, which was interesting foreshadowing.
Oh, okay.
So, she's
okay.
got like this wild red and black thing, Day of the Deadish style, what's its nuts going on. And there was an embroidered phoenix on the front of her dress. And the whole thing about the phoenix...
Was that the one with the like kind of sheer diaphanous, like it was not lace, but it was, I don't know what that was.
Yeah, she had like that neck headpiece thingy and all the paint on her eye and everything, yeah.
There's no way to even describe this, guys. It almost looked like fake tattoos from a distance.
Yes.
It's impossible to describe.
Yeah, but the dress itself was sort of this black sheath dress, which was kind of, what, typical of the time. And there was this big embroidered phoenix on the front, which you don't know is going to be important because, the phoenix is the bird that when it dies, it rises reborn from the flames.
Okay. Yes.
And so like that was some interesting foreshadowing when I went back because I was re-looking at some stuff.
Ah.
But yeah, O'Hara's like, basically, this is going to happen, so I'll do it the nice way. And Atoy's just like, fuck me, okay. And then he's talking to Assam, and it's hey, do you know this Jacob guy? And Assam looks at O'Hara and says, we don't all know each other, which I thought was pretty funny.
Well, meanwhile, he does know Jacob. And
yes, he does.
Yeah, he does know Jacob. But so O'Hara tries to leverage the fact he saved Assam's life, and he also knows that Assam knows Jacob because he leverages the fact he saved Assam's life and is like, well, I saved your life, so you want to tell me who this guy is now? And he's like, no, I don't know what he is. And he's like, yeah, well, he's Penny's valet.
He basically says, hey, do you remember season 1?
Yeah. You remember how you used to fuck this lady Penny? Because it's her valet is who we're looking for, so you kind of got to know him. And he's like, yeah, I don't know him. Go fuck yourself. And they just kind of walk away from each other like, yeah, all right. It's a mutual respect but dislike.
Yeah, and it's like another escalation in what's going on. But yeah, you get Buckley driving up to the edge of Chinatown because they've locked down Chinatown at this point. Nobody can get in, nobody can get out, more or less. And Buckley rolls up in his closed carriage. And the beat cop who like opens the door and sees it's Buckley, I love how he kind of basically does that like big gulp, like, hi, Mr. Buckley, sir. Please don't remember me. Please don't remember me. Please don't remember me.
Yeah, that's not a guy you want to know your name.
No.
At all. No. You don't want him to know your name at all.
And then so we get Up to No Good music as Buckley is up to no good. And
he's there to meet Mai Ling.
Yeah. And she comes out of the door in the hood and they have their showdown.
So maybe you can explain this to me because I didn't really like The Sopranos. I don't like Game of Thrones. I don't like any kind of political machinations. So what is the desperate need to find this murderer? In what way, logically, does that legitimize his rule?
Legitimize Buckley's rule, or
yes, because he's in a panic to find this guy and have him killed.
Okay,
in some kind of effort to legitimize his existence, and I don't understand that. I'm so sick of incels, and I need to understand why the fuck they do the things they do.
Well,
so can you tell me why incels do these things?
I don't know about why incels, novels. But sort of why there is a certain type of political leader who knows that. Like, there's the kind of political leader who wants to go out there and, like, make the world a better place, for whatever that means. But then there's the kind of political leader, like Buckley, who's just in it for the power he can have over people. And we're kind of stuck in a weird thing about that right now in our own world. It's like, I'm not trying to do anything for the world. I just want to push people around. And the easiest way to have power over people is to get them to stop thinking. And the easiest way to get people to stop thinking is to make them mad about something. And so in this case, we have a nice...
Oh, mad and scared.
Right.
So he's got some scared and some mad. Nobody's thinking rationally.
Right. You got it. And so you've got the mayor who's like, you'd think would be the safest guy in the city, right? And he just got killed by a Chinese dude. So none of us are safe. So let's go get him.
Interesting. I still don't get why he's so hell-bent on getting him. But again, I guess he's just trying to cause turmoil.
Right.
It was that whole thing. But now he doesn't need the turmoil because he has the mayordom. So what the hell? It still doesn't make any sense, but whatever.
There is a type of person who all they want is more power over more people. Like there's no good reason for it. They don't even want to do anything good or particularly bad with it. They just want the power. It's like people who just want more money. Like they don't enjoy it. They don't buy nice food for themselves or other people or fun shoes or whatever. They just want more money. It's the same way. Some people just want more power.
Man. If only we had some kind of way to profile those people as children and then just feed them to alligators or something.
Well, there's some people like that can end up doing good. You just have to direct that in the right way. But anyway, in talking about what people with too much money should buy.
I would be fascinated to find out how that... We'll have to do a Patreon-only episode at some point and find out how you would go about making Buckley into a decent human being.
Well, see, I look at somebody like Oskar Schindler. Like, he was not a particularly good guy, but sort of he used whatever relentless, like, driving force into him to do some very real good in a strange situation, in a very pressing situation.
I wonder if Buckley would have helped out in the Holocaust in the same way. I feel like he probably would have been on the wrong side of this one.
Yeah.
Because he's not even protecting his pocket, this man. Like, there's not even an overriding financial aspect of it where he's like, I'm protecting my bottom line. He's not protecting the city's bottom line because he's going to bankrupt them with all these cops. It's literally just like, it's just about power, like you said.
Yeah, there are those people who just want to climb over the next wall, and for them, the way to do that is pile up bodies so they can stand upon them.
Well, hey. Well, it's a good thing we have this guy, because without this guy, we would not have had the scene that's coming up. When Nellie comes to check on Atoy, we get my favorite fight scene that I've seen thus far, I think, in this show, because it was so realistic. It was really great, although Den of Geek, again, came down on the wrong side of this one. They hated this fight scene.
What?
So that's why I watched the extras on this, because I was like, maybe I read this fight scene wrong, but no, I did not. You and I read the fight scene right. This is the fight choreographer, Brett Chan. This is his favorite fight scene of this episode, and one of his favorites of the season. Olivia Cheng did all of her own stunts in this, Atoy, and so she was a badass in this. And it was her fighting without her main weapon, so it was very different than the way we usually see Atoy.
And so these two cops come in, and they're like, hey, the cops were already here. And they say, we're back for a surprise inspection. And there was a very interesting 19th century moment here where when Nellie pipes up and they look over and they're like, oh shit, you're a rich white lady, they take off their helmets sort of in respect to her. Like they were just straight shooting you, you bitch, we're here to do bad to Atoy. But when they notice Nellie there and try to like hustle her out the front door, they take their hats off because rich white lady, we have to show respect.
It was funny. He took his hat off right before he smacked the shit out of the lady, but like it was. I thought the way they shot the scene was cool because these two guys are hulking compared to Atoy. Atoy, I think, is around 5 feet tall, and like Olivia Cheng, she's a short lady.
Yeah.
And these guys are both like one of them's 6'2". I didn't look up the other one's height, but he was about the same size. They
are solid. People. Like
they're big burly
brick
dudes.
Walls.
Yeah. And these two, so they shoot the part of the interaction over the shoulder of the two guys looking down at the women. See, and they're looking up like they're clearly like, oh, these are big dudes who are staring at us.
This is bad.
Yeah.
This is very bad. And and Atoy is like, I don't have my fucking sword. I was down in the bar moping, and my swords are upstairs. Fuck me. But nope. Is Atoy going to give up? Is she going to go down easy? No.
No. So Nellie gets slapped by one of the guys who are hammer and cleaver because they pull out a hammer and a cleaver. And Atoy pulls.
Yeah, it's one of those 5-pound sledges. Yeah,
and not a claw hammer, a 5-pound sledge. So like that thing will smash you. And
yes.
So Atoy pulls one of her hairpins out. It's a hairpin knife. She whips it into Hammer's arm. He blocks it. He blocks the knife throw with his arm because it's going to go right into his heart. He blocks it with his arm. Now his arm's out of action, and then she.
Yeah, it's that same knife that she stabbed the pirate with earlier.
Oh, was it? Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, and, like that's her weapon that she always has on her, even if she doesn't have her sword.
And that's dead on because then the women went on to fight with hat pins and hairpins and stuff like that later on with grabby men on the train. But so she's getting bashed up because she's a woman fighting two big guys, and so she is taking a lot of lumps and giving them back. She stabs a guy with a bottle or smashes a bottle over a guy's head, and she just keeps every time she gets up, she keeps getting kicked back down, which seemed dead on. As a woman, what did you think of this fight scene?
It scared the shit out of me because it was so realistic. And when she manages to move out of the way of most of that hammer strike, I was like, oh, fuck. She's going to die when they hit her with that hammer. And like they graze her ribs basically. And so she's got probably 4 broken ribs now that she's still doing this with. But Atoy's the kind of person who just gets madder and madder and madder instead of ever giving up.
Yeah, and so she's on the ground. She's doing a ton of leg fighting, which Den a Geek, I know you guys didn't like it, but that is, if you watch any MMA fighters, like the BJJ guys, a lot of times they'll just fall backwards into the guard and kick off the ground, and I've seen lots of people get knocked out that way from up kicks from the ground.
Well, and she's a trained fighter. She knows she can't go up square against these guys. No fucking way.
Yeah, they have 100 pounds on her at least, and a foot of height. So and weapons. So she's fighting with a hat pin at first.
So she's trying to keep them as far away as possible and do what she can. So when they go after her collarbone with the cleaver, that's when the penny dropped for me. Like I didn't immediately click that these were the pork butcher assassins that Patterson. When he came down with the cleaver, I'm like, wait.
So she's laying on the stairs and shifts her shoulder down slightly as the cleaver's coming down. So most of it goes into the stair tread, but some of it gets buried into her like her trap.
Yeah.
And so now she's super jacked up. And Nellie Davenport jumps up. Now she's been smacked down. She jumps up, grabs a piece of stemware, stabs this dude in the back with it.
Yes.
And of course gets smashed to bits again. But
I really appreciated the way that they really set up this fight that, Atoy can't do her arm's length, sword's length thing. And so at the brute force end, she is in trouble.
Yeah, because she's a tiny little lady and she has no weapons. And she's not a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter either. And also Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu would have just gotten her killed her anyway. Because he would have just smashed her on things until she died. She would have pulled guard. Oh, God, I love it when little people pull guard on me. But yeah, he would have just smashed her all over the place until she died. She stabs Hammer through the ear hole with the knife that he pulls out of his own arm. He pulls the knife out, drops it on the ground, and then she grabs it, stabs him in the ear with it. And Cleaver freaks out, and he's chasing her up the stairs. And then when he gets to the top of the stairs, he's holding his cleaver, and we see the image of him holding his cleaver past her butterfly sword, and you're like, oh, you're fucked now, buddy.
Yeah. She's like, now we get to fight on my terms. And as this all was going on, and once I was like, oh shit, these guys are the assassins, I was like, this is saying a lot of things about the San Francisco police force. Like, these guys have honest to God police uniforms. There is a lot rotten in the San Francisco Police Department.
I would say that it probably would be very easy to purchase a police uniform off of the cops back in the day. They were all corrupt as shit. and they were all poor. So like, I mean, you had to pay a cop in order to get your stolen goods back. So it would have like if they hadn't solved a lot of crimes, they would be broke as shit. So they I would imagine it was probably pretty easy to buy a uniform back then.
Yeah, but I was just thinking like that really big guy, you know, he had to have that one custom made or whatever. But yeah, but
I can see that.
Atoy is definitely having a moment. She's like, why can't I fucking have nice things? She's mad and she's sad and she's upset, and I just, like I said, she is my favorite character in the show, and just.
Oh, are you talking about so she sends away Nellie Davenport at the end because she and I felt like it was exactly the same scene as with Lie. She was like, I don't want Lie to be a murderer. I don't want Nellie Davenport to be a murderer. I'm just going to send these people away. Everybody who loves me ends up getting hurt.
Yes.
It's that scene. So.
Well, and it's like, yeah, I'm too messed up for this world. And you get this attitude in guys a lot, like, I'm too broken for this world, sort of like that Punisher attitude. I sort of feel like she's taking on a little bit of that. Like, I can't be around anything nice. I'll just fuck it up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that is really endemic among American males now, especially around my age. My God. Every time I go on Instagram, I'm seeing the same people do this emotional rebirth where they're like, I thought I couldn't feel anymore. Then something made me feel. And now I'm sad, but I'm mad and I'm coming back stronger than ever. And it's like, how about you get a fucking therapist, bro?
Like, sad is good. Lean into it. Figure out why this is happening to you and maybe change some stuff. Is that?
Yeah, maybe women would stop leaving you if you stopped slapping them.
Or just being, or only having the two emotions, angry and hitting things.
Yeah. The other emotion is hitting things. I like that. There's no happy, there's no regular. It's just two emotions, angry and hitting things.
Yeah.
It's like the rabbit and the turtle on the lawnmower.
Yeah. Oh my God. But anyway, so we go to.
So then we get to O'Hara stops a cop from fucking with Chow, and Chow is pretty hard at it. He's like, you just saved that cop's life. I don't know if that was just hard talk or if it was true, but it was probably a bit.
Yeah, I also think
Chow has just gotten done killing some people,
and also Wong Chow just like, he likes to have this smooth surface. Like, he just likes to be smooth and level, and he has been ruffled and he's mad about it. He's like, shit, I lost my cool. And so I think he's also kind of mad about that and blowing off a little steam that way.
Oh, nice. Oh, it's I know we're still in season 2, but Wong Chow was a writer on season 3. So I imagine we're going to get a little more Chow in there. And also, I just love the fact that the people in the show are so invested in it that he petitioned to be a writer on that show. It's
nice.
And also, all of the cast, every day of shooting, they get together at the beginning before any of the shooting begins. And the fight team leads everybody in the cast through a bunch of training in 2 different fight styles that are picked at random from the fight team, which is super international. So they've got, I mentioned like Joe Taslim has like 5 different fight styles that he knows. And his 5 styles are different than like Jason Tobin's fight style. So it's like they all know different stuff. And then there's the stuntmen too. So they train 2 different ones every day, just picked at random. And that's like their team building exercise in the morning, which just makes their fighting even better. Yeah, it's so cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole fight scene in episode 6, the epic fight epic, like that wouldn't have worked if you didn't have all these people who were so good at what they do. It's like, okay, how can we combine these 2 completely like make no sense together fight styles into something that looks cool? I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
But at the end of this encounter, O'Hara is like he's like, shit's gonna go down bad. I can feel it. So I want to repair as much as I can repair. So he actually apologizes to Chow.
Is that what you saw?
Sorry, we had to.
All right, that's interesting.
Yes,
because O'Hara is now he's a very interesting character because he's pretending to be noble, but he's still having to figure out how to cover up all of his fuck ups and evil shit in the past. So like he is stuck in this hell of a limbo. And he's on an island. His wife's left him. Lee left him. Everybody hates him. Yep. And he now he's the boss, so he can't even chum around with the other cops.
Nope.
Like he's in a tough spot. So I guess he sees Chow as the other guy who is on an island by himself.
Yeah, and he's like, you are one of the few people who, like, I haven't totally fucked up my relationship with, I hope. So I'm sorry we had to shut you down, man. Like, that was big, like, opening a door as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, well, we go from an open door into an open window as the breeze is blowing through into Patterson's bedroom, who is surprisingly not sleepy. He is up and, contemplating some bad decisions he's made.
Little jittery. And so this is where you realize that Patterson has a family. He's in bed with his wife. He's tripping over his kids' toys.
He kicked a xylophone as he was, like, so he hears a noise downstairs or some rustling or whatever.
Yeah.
So he gets up, and as he's sneaking around trying to see if there's somebody downstairs, he kicked a xylophone, which I thought was a really cool touch. Because, when you think of old school toys, I don't know. You don't even think that kids in the 19th century had toys. You just think that they were, like, beaten and forced to sew soccer balls or whatever the hell a 19th century
But not
version
rich
of that
kids.
was.
Rich kids had toys. And you saw the, like, rocking horse, and you saw the top, and you saw, the dollies.
Yeah. But I just thought it was cool he had a xylophone. I didn't know they were as old as they are. They go back to 2000 BC.
Yeah. The marimbas and the xylophones have been around for a real long time. Let's see.
Apparently you knew.
But yeah, he sort of comes downstairs and he's doing a now what? And he goes downstairs and he sees Toy there, and you can just see whatever little blood that man had in his face is drops to his toes.
Well, it's not just a hooded but gory and bloodied and battered Toy at his dinner table with a blood-splattered contract in front of her, but there are two severed heads on his sideboard. On a silver platter, there are two severed heads. A literal silver platter on his sideboard, which I was like, damn. Number one, to be wealthy enough to have a sideboard again. And then number two, to be wealthy enough to have a silver tray of any kind. But three, severed heads, I think I could probably do without. And that would be quite jarring.
Yeah, I don't even know if he recognized the heads, but it doesn't matter. He's just like, this woman who I'm trying to diddle just brought me two severed human heads. Like, I'm surprised he can still remember how to breathe at this point.
Yeah, I can't. And then he stood there and lied to her, and she goes, You lie again and your children die in their beds, which is the hardest line in this entire show. It's so hard. Oh, God, I hate being lied to. I would love to say that to people for lying to me. You lie again and your children die in your beds.
You sign now. Yeah, and you could tell, like, the trying to weasel out of something was total spinal reflex. Like, there was no thought involved. That's just how his brain works. I always got to weasel. I always got to be a weasel. I am just a weasel.
Yes. His invertebrate instincts kicked in and he just starts wiggling.
And so, he signs fast, real fast.
And then we get the most unexpected ending, I think, of all time. Jacob follows O'Hara's lead. Apparently, Wong Chow is the beacon in the darkness. And Jacob, the terrified little man that he is, goes to Chow for help. And I don't know who I would have gone to in his case, but I don't think Chow is the right answer.
Except Wong Chow is the man at the center of the web, and Jacob is like I can't talk to anybody who's white, and so he goes to the man with the most connections.
Why wouldn't he go to Assam?
I don't think, he wouldn't know where to find Assam, I don't think, or I don't know if he could have gotten into the Hop Wei.
He found Assam before.
That's true.
Like, when he had to find Assam for Penny, he would find him all the time. He should have just gone to... Well, I mean, I'm not writing this show, and he's a terrified man on a fictional character. But I still, had I been him, I would have gone directly to Assam. Because he could have... Assam, at the very least, could have given him different clothes and made him a fucking butler for the Hop Wei or something. I mean, anything else would have been better. He could have gone to Mai Ling. He could have gone to any gangster... Atoy. Anybody other than Chow.
Yeah.
But Chow is a mercenary. He will sell this man immediately. Like, he is a slave trader, literally.
I don't know, but on the other hand, like he knows that Wang Chao has the most connections, so he was maybe thinking like, this is where I have the most options. I'm gonna guess Jacob not thinking the best thoughts, just like Penny, just like Sophie. He's not thinking straight. He's not even connecting thoughts.
No, and he, I don't know, maybe he's not all that bright. Who knows?
And so he's got a bunch of money that Penny gave him, and he's just like, get me out of here. And you can just see Wang Chao making choices. Like you can just see just like the gears were turning in Buckley's head, the gears are turning in Wang Chao's head.
Yeah, he's weighing how much could I get for this guy if I sell him to O'Hara versus how much can I get if I take his money. And I'm sure there are more calculations that go into it, but you'd have to be evil to figure them out.
Well, and he's like talking himself into all of the ways why he can't help him too. But yeah, and I think he's also thinking there's like, how much can I sell him for, but also how can I do this in a way that doesn't fuck me up so much? Because he's recently been fucked up by the police and the city. Yeah,
and it's a tough spot for everybody not everybody who's involved, but it does present interesting problems. But again, I am not a person who is particularly good at politics, so I would probably make the worst decisions of anybody if put in these situations.
Yeah, and at this point, the way the show's going and the fact that it does have some fairly true to life, sort of like what life was like for the Chinese in America, I'm like, this is not going to have a happy ending. You can feel all of the pressure ramping up.
Yeah. And I think that now that I'm going back in and like doing more trickle down research, just following certain threads of strange people in history and finding out how many idiotic, like, I was asking the question of what was the motivation there, and then I reading about the Texas Rangers attacking like Guatemala in the 1850s and things like that, and like they were just doing evil. They were just attacking at all times. They felt like there had to be a winner and there had to be a loser, and so they must.
Okay, this is exactly what I wanted to talk about, and this like is set up and sort of you can see into everybody's thinking in this. Like, there's nobody really who's looking for like a win-win situation. They're all doing I can only win if my enemy is like this pulped, bloody mass at my feet. They're all doing the Conan quote.
Was that a common philosophy at the time?
Yeah. Like,
okay.
But I'm just saying, I think this show is doing a lot to sort of very much emphasize this is the way that everybody was thinking. I mean, we have to go in and civilize / eradicate anybody who stands in our way. Europeans have been doing that since at least like the 16th century.
Well, I would say it dates back to the Romans. The Romans were very big.
Right.
Yeah. Pacification and.
Right.
They did have the benefit of building roads, which we didn't do when we came to the New World, which still is something that perplexes me. I don't understand how we lost the thread on infrastructure.
Yeah, but so when I say the Conan quote, you know the one I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the Robert E. Howard, the Blood of My Enemies, which is a terrible rehash of a much better quote by Genghis Khan, in fact.
Right, but all of us who watched any movie...
To hear the lamentations of my enemies, that whole one.
Yeah,
right?
I actually wrote it down here. It was, somebody asked Conan, what is best in life? And he says, to crush your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of their women. Like, that is this very short-sighted, not thinking about tomorrow, maybe today is a good day to die way of seeing the world. And so nobody in here is thinking about, but what about the day after? Where do I get my bread? Where do I get my rice? Where do I get my bacon? Where do I get my tea? Where do my babies sleep? There's none of that thinking that goes into a thought like that.
I wonder if that had anything to do with the conception of time at the time, like how time was measured in a task rather than like, well, I'll be there when, like, in the time it takes to do a thing that everybody did, like thresh a field or I don't know, chew bubble gum or drink a beer or whatever it was. Like, they used those, like, so time was much more short-sighted and very, like, anchored in the present as opposed to planning up for the future or dealing with the past, because they didn't have good historical records, nor did they have any good timekeeping.
I don't know about that. I do think there's a certain amount of it tied into, we've talked about this on and off, that you could just die tomorrow of a hangnail, basically. So, yeah. But I also think it has to do with pushing women out of governance and pushing women out of religion.
Interesting. How would that be tied in?
Well, you think about it, like, if a woman is pregnant, she can't but help think about the future. She has her children around her. You can't help but think about the future. It's just something that you do every single damn minute, because you're looking around at people who need to eat and need to sleep and need to be safe and need to be fed. And if you're sort of have this like warrior mentality, I could die tomorrow, I don't care, you know, and the quartermaster is going to bring me my food. And so if you just decide that everything women has to say is stupid and weak and annoying, like, that future thinking it's gonna fall away. It's gonna become unimportant.
And the things that would keep a person in a civilized society from committing a very impulsive, violent act would be completely vanished, because they're away from their family and their children and their wife for long periods of time, so they don't have that same like tight connection. They're thinking about these other bros who are also psychopaths with CTE, who are always drunk, and so they're just making terrible fucking decisions at the spur of a moment, and there's nobody saying, you got kids, bro, like you don't need to fight that battle. Like, there are people waiting for you. There was none of that. So I see, that's interesting. And that is something I had never, ever considered.
And then you also think about punishment schemes. Is my punishment beheading, drying, and quartering, and torture to really fuck you up? Or is punishment that you have to contribute to society in ways that nobody really wants to? Like, you got to go dig the ditches for the sewage system, which has to be done, nobody likes to do, but you have done something that's contributing to making society better.
That's also interesting. Although I would say that I think entrusting valuable positions to criminals is a terrible plan. I think it would probably be better to just pay those jobs very well, as opposed to making it... Criminals do a terrible job at everything.
Absolutely. I mean, like in Silo, they sort of have the same thing. Like, there's some like punishment jobs where they have to like sort recycling and stuff. But again, and if you set it up so it's like, if you do this job well, you get out of punishment and you don't die. Like, there's a direct, like, you don't die aspect to it. Yeah, because we've talked about, you know, is your punishment retributive, revenge-based, or is it rehabilitative? Hey, guess what? 19th century. Revenge, revenge, revenge. Suffering, revenge.
Yeah, and no education of any kind. Just none.
And absolutely no consideration of how did this person get into this situation, and let's face it, Americans think prevention is dumb because it ain't sexy. You never get on the cover of Time magazine and a ticker tape parade from making something not happen.
Yeah, I suppose that's probably why there was a lot of resistance to vaccines in the first place.
And
plus, you don't get to be the hero who got to do it on your own if you take a vaccine.
Right. It's much more satisfying to like carry the kid out of the burning building than to be the one who insists upon, you know, good fire safety systems in the building. Yeah,
a sprinkler system, and maybe not taking the battery out of the fire alarm.
Right.
They're not going to make a movie out of the woman who said, leave the fucking battery in the alarm.
Or don't just take it out, change it. That's why it's chirping at you. It's time to change the damn battery.
I would like to say that isn't a common thing, but every single time I play Call of Duty, somebody's fire alarm is chirping in the background. It's like, oh, that man's going to die of a fatal burn at some point.
Well,
smoke inhalation.
Since we haven't solved anything, we get to look forward to next week, where they may not solve anything either, but at least we know there's going to be cool fighting with the title Enter the Dragon.
Oh, yes.
If that's not a cool fighting episode, what are we even doing here, man?
It is. Well, we know it is the setup. Well, it's either the setup to the Leary fight or it is the Leary fight, because we had the awesome Li Yong fight in episode 9 last season.
Right.
What do you think we're going to get? Do you think it's going to be episode 9 or episode 10?
I have a feeling they're going to save it for episode 10 because it feels like we're going to have riots. Like they are setting it up for riots next episode.
I think you're probably right, but I cannot wait to see Leary block another punch with his forehead. I love or the crown of his head. I love watching people block punches with the crown of their head. Oh, it's so good. Such a good old school dirty boxing thing.
All right.
Plus, I love watching Leary fight. His fight style is so great in this. So
well, and the way that they recreate 19th century boxing through him, like the fact that he's clearly like specifically trained to do those moves, I think is super cool.
Yep. Yeah, it's really fun. So that is it. We've wrapped it up.
Yep.
Do you? What is the new episode on the history of American food?
Pirates. I'm doing pirates. I did Louisiana Purchase. So if we're gonna have New Orleans, which is the best pirate city, we got to do 19th century pirates.
So it's 19th century pirate food.
How they're interacting with the food system, and so it's gonna be pirates, privateers, slavers, and smugglers.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, I guess
they all had a role in food, and you kind of know, if you kind of know what sailors are eating, then you kind of know what pirates are eating, but their activities is going to help decide sort of how food works.
So which of the two weevils is lesser in between the smugglers and the and this? I just wanted to say lesser of two weevils.
You started up that road and you're like, yeah.
No, I couldn't go any further with it, but yeah, the lesser of two weevils. I'm looking forward to that because one, I always just think about how many worms they must have been eating, and there's all different ways they could have prepared those worms. So I'm interested to learn about it. At this point, it's just them scooping worms out of a bucket in my head. It's just deep fried worms for everything.
Deep fried worms. There you go. All right.
Pick them out of Buckley's leg and eat them. I'm on Instagram at Plague of Strength, posting every day about strength history, martial arts history, and just history in general, because I love history.
Yeah, it's some good stuff, and always interesting conversations that pop up around the really kind of unknown things that you're throwing up there.
Well, thank you. I love it when you pop in because I really need to back up on the food situation for the 19th century. As you can see, these people think that these were genetic supermen who ate superfoods and are unattainable, and it's like nope. They were just filthy people from the 19th century.
There you go. Who worked real damn hard. I mean, that's what a lot of it's about. But everybody was working real damn hard. They just worked real damn hard on their bodies.
Exactly, and they had no phone to play around on instead of working out.
No. All right, well, we will be back next week with Enter the Dragon, and there better be some real cool fights.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. There was only one fight in this scene, or in this episode, which I think is the first time. Usually we get two, but that was the beginning scene, I think, so.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. All right.
Until next week.
Have
a great one.
Yes. We're on Instagram at PCG Podcast, and you can always reach out to us by email at pcgpodcasters@gmail.com. And you can find more dope beats like this one from royalraven.com.